Yes, good afternoon. So I have prepared for you the basic principles of organic pest and disease management. And I will also focus then on the first and second line of defense. And so first line of defense, that means the preventive measures to prevent the pests and diseases. Again, we are talking about shade and biodiversity management. So we have heard already quite a lot in the last two courses about the importance of shade trees or agroforestry trees, intercropping trees. And this comes again when we talk about prevention measures against pests and diseases. So it's really important to have timber trees, fruit trees, nitrogen fixing trees, soil fertilizing trees to create a complex habitat in the coffee plantation. And of course, as we mentioned also in the last two online courses, shade management actually is quite important to have a good balanced shade to reduce pest pressure. So if you have too much shade, it's not good because you may get problems with some coffee berry borer, but you may also get some problem with some fungal diseases. And if you have too less shade, you also stress them plants because there is too much sun or there are other factors. So, and was already said, some pest-specific actions. If you have shade trees, they may attract birds or insects and they prey on certain pests like the coffee berry borer. We will hear a bit more about this pest, Hypotenemus hampi, a bit later on. And also coffee leaf miner may also be then controlled by a shade that is cooling down a microclimate in the coffee plantation. And soil health and plant vigor, we just have heard already from Mr. Drin, and he told us healthy and strong plants are very important for him. And therefore, he's an organic farmer since many, many years. Yeah, that's really a key point. We need proper nutrition. We have to maintain heavy soil with organic matter. What we also have learned on Monday during our second course, as we have said, the trees, the compost, animal manures, cover crops, whatever, mulching. So we need really good and vigorous plants, coffee plants. Maintaining soil moisture and good soil structure, of course, is quite important to reduce stress. That was also just mentioned by Mr. Dang Nguyen, who said he's sprinkling his plots to have no problem with some ants and also some other pests. Of course, if you have an irrigation method in place or possibility, that's fine. But in many coffee plantations, you don't have irrigation, so therefore we really need quite a good soil moisture management. And this again we have we get to, if we do some good methods, but we also have learned this on the last Monday. And also what is important that coffee plants receive a balanced, slow release nutrients from organic matter. Therefore, there will be less stress. So, and also that is often the case with some artificial nitrogen fertilizer because they are giving the plants a lot of nitrogen in the conventional method, and then plants get quite the vigor or the tissue of the coffee plants get quite weak and get easily then also infested by some fungal diseases or even some pests. And the third is sanitation. Of course, that is key, that we really want to break the life cycle of any pest, and therefore sanitation is the single most effective cultural practice for several key pests. So that shortly means, or shortly said, that we really remove all the infested coffee berries during the harvest and also after the harvest. It's easily said, just to remove it, but we all know it's quite a lot of work to pick up all the infested coffee berries, but it's a very good method really to break the life cycle of certain pests. And as it states here, it's the primary cultural control method for the coffee berry borer. That is really key for this most important pest in coffee. Pruning. Pruning, we're talking about pruning of a coffee plant, but we also talk about pruning of any shade tree or any intercrop tree. So, of course, pruning is quite important. Also was mentioned, I think, by Mr. Dang Yun recently, that he's pruning and when ants go away, as he just mentioned to us. So, pruning is key to have a good, healthy coffee plant, but also to do some pruning that there is not too much shade and also not to prune too much. So you have to find again the right balance of shade management. And especially when it comes to coffee leaf rust, which is quite an important disease with mainly with Arabica coffee. Yes, we want to reduce humidity levels and therefore mainly pruning of coffee trees and also shade trees is really important and decisive. And resistant or tolerant varieties, of course, that is always important in any crop growing in organic agriculture. And in coffee, we have various Arabica varieties which show resistance or at least tolerance to, for example, to the coffee leaf rust. So that brings in then other opportunities. However, we also have to see many tolerant varieties or resistant. They use some what they call East Timor varieties, which have some Robusta genes bred in the Arabica varieties. So by planting a lot of tolerant varieties, we also lose a bit the cup quality of coffee. So that is mainly happening in Latin America. So we also have to see, it's good to have tolerant varieties, but then we may also have a bit less, a lower quality of coffee. But that is already a bit specific. Yes, but it's a very good method, especially when you have in Arabica coffee with a lot of problem with coffee leaf rust. Then here just a picture. Now we just look to a cocoa plantation just to see it's a bit similar. Cocoa is a bit similar crop like coffee. And I just summarized here the prevention measures in an agroforestry cocoa-based system. To the right-hand side, you can see again a regular spacing of shade trees, pruning, not only the cocoa, also pruning the shade tree, the fruit tree regularly. And also what we just have mentioned, to choose disease tolerant or resistant varieties. As we know in coffee, sometimes the researchers tell us these are resistant varieties, but after some years, the coffee plant is breaking through the resistance, and when it's just tolerant. So we also have to face the reality. Often it's just tolerant varieties, and we should not only base our strategy on disease tolerant or resistant varieties. Then here it says again, remove disease spots regularly. So sanitation is important, and also harvest cocoa pods regularly. So all this yield management, all of this is important. And it's a bit similar what we also have in coffee production. And weed, the understory, here to the right, to the lower side to the right, of course, also weeding is quite important, but you don't have so much moisture, humidity in the fields, in this case, in the cocoa fields. Yes, and in the next point or topic, habitat for natural enemies. Of course, if we have intercrop trees, hedgerows, or nectar sources, in the coffee plantation or nearby, or we also have some forest patches, of course, that may maintain some parasitoids or some birds or some ants or some predatory insects. So that are then quite good, but we also have some control of some pests. So, but also I think in the course outline you have heard already about this, so it's nothing new, but just to mention as a preventive and first line of defense method. And here we have a situation, it's not coffee, it's just an annual crop, but I just wanted to show you the importance of supporting beneficial organisms on farm. Let's say now it's a vegetable farm, mainly a vegetable farm. So besides of increase on farm diversity, apply organic manures, compost, they may reduce a bit of the tillage. To the left side and also to the right side, you can see here maintain a variety of flowering plants, the left side, or to the right side, you provide some habitat after harvest. You may set aside some wild, unfarmed areas. So all this is also important for annual crops. And the big advantage with coffee is we have already some kind, what you can see to the right-hand side, we have this already in coffee. We have already intercrop trees, and we have some herbs growing. So that is the good thing about coffee plantations. With agroforestry system, we have already some kind of balanced system and quite different to an annual crop situation. And this is what I wanted to show you. That is already a big advantage with agroforestry in coffee, and the same with cocoa, if we grow organic cocoa. And continuous monitoring and early detection, of course, that is important, that we go to, as coffee farmers, we are at the coffee plantation, not only every 2 or 3 weeks, but we regularly go there, we observe the leaves, the branches, or the fruits of the plants, the coffee beans, and we when also detecting pests, because we want to find the problems before they really come up and really make us a big problems. So that is also a part of a first line of defense against diseases and pests in coffee. And the economic threshold, all of us know this. We have to check if really the economic threshold is already there that justifies intervention. And even if we see now it's now time to intervene, we also have to check to avoid any unnecessary sprays that harm natural predators. So it always has to be balanced before we really go for what we call second line of defense. And of course, we have to choose then the right method and timing. And now we are going now to the second line, as already mentioned, of defense. So that means direct allowed intervention. That means we did already all of it, all preventive measures have been done. We tried that we have no economic threshold is already, but now if really we have to intervene with direct and allowed interventions, we have to check if these interventions comply with some organic regulations, especially those of European Union, Naturland, United States, USDA, or also some Vietnamese standards, in order to be according to the compliance of all these standards. And now the world became a bit complicated because some standards allow certain substances, others not. So here we have to be sure to be always compliant. And so one quite important second line of defense is biological control, augmentative biological control, that we really can increase as farmers the population of natural enemies. So we can purchase natural enemies and release them, or we can multiply them. And that is really a direct targeted intervention. So there are many microbial products like Bacillus thuringiensis, microbial agents, pheromones. We may also hear shortly about more specific biological control in the next slide. And that is the classical example, Beauveria bassiana against coffee berry borer. It's the main pest in coffee. And the Beauveria bassiana, it's a naturally occurring entomopathogenic fungus that infects and kills the coffee berry borer. This fungus actually is a soil-borne fungus, but can be found in many countries and environments. And organic farmers, they use normally commercial formulations of this fungus, and they spray it on the coffee plants or even on the intercrop trees during the flight or early berry entry. So that is a very successful story. It's used since many years. About 20 years ago, we also conducted a field study with the Naturland farmers in Latin America, about 30,000 certified Naturland coffee farmers. And then we also got to know that many Naturland farmers use this method against coffee berry borer, and they have significant mortality and economic benefits when they really do this method, combining with sanitation, picking all the infested berries and during and after harvest. So this fungus really kills then this beetle, or also the different stages. And we also have to see that this fungus also stays in the coffee plantation as long as we have some intercropping systems. So if we have intercrop system with shade trees, we may not have to use every year again this formulation. It stays there, and then we also have a good balance with this pest. So another example is when parasitic wasps like Phymostachys coffea or Trichogramma, they lay the eggs inside or on the host insect. So there are also quite some success stories, not so much like Beauveria bassiana, but at least in some countries. We will hear a bit later on the coffee berry borer example, in which countries they have been quite successful. And here you can see where other products, other Bacillus subtilis or Trichoderma that are used in organic farming and also were allowed to be used. And they may also manage fungal diseases, not only pests. So also fungal diseases can be managed with microbial substances. Yes, and the second line of defense, botanical and mineral substances. If the organic standards permit, yes, you can use it. For example, like neem, Azadirachta indica, the famous neem from India and South Asia. So it's widely used, and the active ingredient, Azadirachtin, they act against many pests. And before it was mentioned, I think some of you mentioned Antestia bug before. So in East Africa, they use quite a lot of neem products against the Antestia bugs. And it's quite a successful product, let's say product range, the neem oil or even some neem leaves. However, you also have to be careful because I think in Japan, the Japan organic regulation, they are quite restrictive concerning neem. So again, here we have some complication. Neem can be used in European Union standard, also United States standards, but the Japan standards is restricting quite a lot of neem. And so, and the other botanical insecticide, for example, is pyrephrines extracted from a flower, chrysanthemums, and is a fast-acting nerve toxin, quite strong substances, and it has a broad spectrum, and therefore it can harm beneficial insects. And therefore the use should be restricted because you also kill some beneficial insects, but it can serve as a last method. You really have a quite big infestation. You don't want to lose your crop, but you may use it, but you should be careful because you're also intervening with the natural balance of pests. And other products that you may be used are soaps and oils, like potassium soaps, mainly against pests, and some aphids, pale insects that have been mentioned already before, and also some horticultural oils, and also botanicals may be used if organic regulations allow this. European Union has restricted now quite a lot the botanicals, which is already complicating a lot now. The new organic regulation of the European Union really made it now really complicated, that you really have to check into detail what is really allowed. So you have to check, do they allow garlic or do they allow onions? As far as I know, they allow garlic, but they may not allow other products. So you have to be quite, you have to really check. Normally they allow products which can be eaten by humans, like garlic or onions can be eaten by humans. They are allowed, but you always have to cross-check. And the same you have to do with any other regulation, as long as you want to export the coffee. Yes, and there are some botanicals were repelling many pests then. About mineral fungicides, use of copper, for example, Bordeaux mixture, it's the primary tool against coffee leaf rust as a second line of defense. We all know coffee leaf rust, there are many preventive actions like shade trees and other make the plants stronger by having strong plants, use of compost manures and all of this. But as a second line of defense, yes, copper is the primary tool against coffee leaf rust because it is preventing spore germinations on the leaves. And organic regulations strictly limit the amount of frequency of copper applications. You can only use about 3 kg of copper per hectare per year. With Naturland, organic EU regulation allows 4 kg. So you always have to cross-check what you can use, what the amount of copper. Sulfur and lime sulfur also acts as fungicides and miticides and may also be used against rust or powdery mildew. So at least they can help quite a lot with farmers. But of course also that all of this also is quite labor intensive because you have to do with spraying and all of this. But at least that is allowed. Yes, and here mass trapping, direct population suppression. So that may also reduce quite significantly the pest population density and bring it down below damaging levels. So many traps, bottle traps, alcohol-baited funnels may be used, for example, against coffee berry borer. We may use a bit more in some minutes to come. Pheromone traps against white stem borer, or sticky traps, light traps against leaf miners in coffee, moths and fruit flies. So yes, so all of this is possible. And as we have said already before, early detection minimizes yield loss. That is important. And also with traps.
Manfred, you have 5 more minutes?
Okay, fine. So all of this also helps us to monitor, not only to suppress the population, but also to monitor well. Yeah, and then the key components of an organic pest management approach for coffee, I just adapted, let's say, a graphic showing you whatever we have heard already. It's just now summarized in this, yes, in this chart. And you can see steps 1, identifying pest and disease risk. 2nd, prevention. We heard already about all of this, but it's just now summarized. And 3rd is monitoring. disease incidence, and pest population. Then we have evaluation of economic thresholds, deciding if interventions are needed, yes or no, define the right method and timing, and then intervention, the second line of defense, just heard. Biological control, physical control, and biopesticides. So that is just now a summary. And again, what we have already heard in this first and second course, agroforestry system with balanced shade are crucial for the first and second line of defense against pests and diseases. There are so many advantages, and that is the key method. And now, just have a look. I don't have so much time, about 3 minutes left, but let's have a look to the most, let's say, the success stories of the control of the most devastating coffee pest worldwide, the coffee berry borer, the Hypotinemus hampi, and there are more or less, I wanted to show you more or less 6 methods. Beauveria bassiana, we heard already, biological control. There are some parasitic wasps that can be used, like Cephalonema stephanoderis, and then some ants that may also be used against coffee berry borer. Physical and control methods, we heard already about trapping with alcohol baits, mass trapping. Then the sanitation was already mentioned, and then also barrier creation, what they call broker cafe bags. And just going now to the Beauveria bassiana, I think most success stories are in Mexico and Central America. So the farmers, they cultivate fungus, Beauveria bassiana, on sterilized rice and apply it to their own plots. And it's a low-cost, community-based approach and has empowered many smallholder organic farmers. This method is used already since about 30 years. Many Naturland farmers in Latin America are using it successfully since many, many years. In Colombia, the Coffee Growers Federation, they made a mass distribution of Beauveria bassiana and also quite successful. Here you can see the figures. And second is the wasps, Stephanonomia stephanoderis. There are some success stories. My personal experience, because as I have worked in Central America, it was promoted a lot, parasitic wasps. It has not so successful in Central America, but at least in Dominican Republic, they had some success. The issue is to raise the wasps is quite time consuming, costly. So I think it's quite a good method, but it is more complex and more complicated, more let's say more costly. But also in Ecuador, they use different wasps, and also at least they could bring down the levels of infestation of the coffee berry borer. And the ants, they had some success stories, mainly in Mexico and Puerto Rico, with significant biocontrol. Of course, here you need a really, like say a coffee forest system to really that the ants really can go to the coffee, and then they are let's say they are really preying on these coffee branches. So it's quite specific. I would say it's only if you have some wild coffee or some forest coffee, it may work out well. But if you have a really intensive coffee, even in organic, it may not be so successful. And
Xin lỗi anh Manfred, chúng mình có 1 phút nữa ở cho phần trình bày của anh.
yeah, I have to come to the end. And just 1 minute, yes. Trapping was already mentioned. As we said already, many you can use plastic traps, and I think I just want to mention you may have to deploy about 25 to 40 traps per hectare. And this method can be very successful. And in India, in Peru, they have adopted locally made traps. That helps quite a lot. And then the second physical control method we mentioned already. It's a success story worldwide, especially in Latin American and African organic sectors. Post-harvest strip picking and sanitation. And then we are coming already to the last point. It's the barrier creation, broker coffee bags. It's a recent innovation from Colombia and Central America. So they put all the infested coffee berries with broker, let's say with the coffee berry borer, they put it in a bag, and the mesh size is small enough to trap the coffee berry borer adults inside, but they allow the native Beauveria spores or parasitic wasps to enter, and then they will die. The coffee berry borer will die, but also the natural enemies, they have some food and they can multiply. So that is the most recent innovation, mainly from Colombia and Central America, the barrier creation. Yes.